Welcome to the new episode of KCBC. I wanted to take a moment very quickly to uh, give everybody a fair warning about this episode. So, Casey and I, this is her second appearance on the show. We are diving into suicidal ideation, losing people to suicide. We're talking about survivor's guilt with suicides and also other losses, everything that's kind of included in the grief recovery method, which she spoke about in a previous episode. You'll have to look through our episode list because I don't remember which episode. I think it might have been 66, 67. But I want to give everybody a fair warning. I'm not censoring this video. I'm not marking it adults only because we don't have any profanity. We don't have anything vulgar that people can't hear. But we do have just real talk about experiences Casey's been through, experiences I've been through, and what I hope and what my prayer and my hope for this episode is that it will help you if you have suffered from losing somebody to suicide, if you are going through suicidal thoughts. If you're not, even if you're not going through suicidal thoughts, but you're on hard times and you're thinking it would be better to just not exist right now versus carrying on, I think you might need to hear this episode, and I encourage you to give it a shot. And if you're not in a space to do that right now, then please dismiss my recommendation and move on. Maybe come back to it later. But this might be the most important episode we've ever done on the show up to this point. And so thank you for all of Casey's following who are here to watch or listen. And thank you to KCBC's listeners and following. We appreciate you all. Love you all. Hope you're all well. And let's get into it. All right. Casey McBroom, welcome back to KCBC, my friend. So good to have you today.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. Been excited for this.
Yeah, me too. Just to give everybody kind of some backstory, we stopped recording. I think it was episode 68. My goodness, almost 20 episodes ago now, with some topics that had come up, and you and I both were like, "Oh, it would have been awesome if we would have talked about that in that episode." And we said, "All right, let's get it on the calendar. Let's get the next talk scheduled." And so here we are in April. As we've been, figuring out what we're going to discuss over this past week, just kind of reconnecting and saying, all right, hey, here's what came up last time. The reason we booked this second appearance for you. And then just some other things that I think the Lord probably put on both our hearts in different ways. And I just think it's super important to remember that when we have a meaningful conversation about anything in life, whether it's on a podcast or at a fireside or at somebody's birthday party or in passing in public, that these conversations are always to be continued, and we can always pick up where we left off. And so I'm really excited to have you back on today. It is very likely we will have you back on again in the future when that time is right and it comes. But I will just kind of start. We did pray before we started recording, and I do feel like it's important for me to just kind of tell everybody about what's happened in the last week in my life on the subject, one of the main subjects we're going to talk about today, which is suicide. But as I said in the very beginning intro part of this episode, we are going to be talking about losing people to suicide. I know that can be a very triggering subject for a lot of people. It absolutely is for me. I am choosing to respond this week by leaning into the relived trauma and some of the things that have happened to me in the last couple years. And I will say that last week in particular, the week of April 3rd, a guitarist from one of my favorite metal bands, Bo Luders, co-host of the Hard Lore podcast, took his own life. And needless to say, it was a shock to everybody. He was a deeply insightful, deeply loved man. Very, very much a heavy loss for a lot of people. I came to find out that a year ago, to last week, I think it was April 6th, my friend, I won't name him out of respect for his family, but one of my good friends took his life, and I was notified April 6th, 2025, that it had happened a month before his wife called me. I was in a Hy-Vee parking lot, and I sat with her on the phone for over an hour talking about it and talking about his life and her pain and what she was going through. And it all hit me then. And then, not to mention that, but last week there was also a a suicide in our community here in Kansas City that was
Mm.
not televised and not on the news, but it did have an impact on me. And it was local, and it was just a reminder with Bo's passing, my buddy's passing, and this new person who had decided to take their life, that this conversation here with you, Casey, um, I could have easily canceled because it would have been too much. Or I could have chosen to lean in, and I felt like I just needed to lean in to be real, and that this was a conversation that I got to have. Not that I had to have, but that I got to have, and that I know the Lord speaks when you show up. The Lord speaks when two or more are gathered in his name. And so we're going to hold space for him to do that today through talking through these experiences and what you have learned through counseling hundreds of people through this type of thing, right? So very long-winded intro, felt like it was very important to set the stage to say that I am operating from a place of weakness today on this show, but I do have faith that by leaning into it, we're going to get something out of this, and folks listening to this or watching this are going to be blessed by it as well. So,
Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing about people's lives, because not talking about it doesn't make it go away. It doesn't make it easier. It doesn't make it better. That's even people who are currently struggling with suicide is pretending it doesn't exist or trying to minimize it is not ever going to fix it. It's not ever going to change it. Um, and it's extremely brave that you are willing to talk about it. And I do want to add, while I really appreciate and I think it's appropriate now that you don't share names, I think just going to kind of jump into this, but I think a lot of times people are scared of. So I'm a grief and trauma specialist, if you didn't hear on last time. So this
yeah,
is,
thank you.
kind of what I do. And so um, I think it's really important. Sometimes we think when someone has lost a loved one, we don't really want to talk about it because we don't want to upset the person who has lost somebody. But don't be afraid to say their name. Don't be afraid to, when you're asking, somebody about their person who has passed, hey, how are you? Like, what have you been missing about them? And speak their name, and you're not going to hurt this person more. I guarantee they're already thinking about it. They're already feeling it. Um, and so, like I said, absolutely appropriate to not bring it up here, but it just reminded me that I think so many times we're afraid to say people's names. But the grievers will know you saying their name, it means so much because it means that they're still being remembered. Because I'm still thinking about them, I'm still remembering them. So when you remember them, it shows me that they mattered and that I matter.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Um, I actually it's funny because we had talked it's not funny, but we had talked about this topic, over the last week or so.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've ever told you where I got the name Brave& and Co. from. I run a, healing and trauma center in
We
Kansas
didn't
City,
cover that
and
last time. I'm
we
so
did,
glad you brought it
okay.
up. Yeah.
So the deeper story there is, so my name means brave, but, the word brave means to be afraid but do it anyways. It actually So have you ever heard of, like, the semicolon tattoo that people get?
I have, but I'm blanking on the reason for it right
Well,
now.
I'd
So
I'd
yes,
love
but
to
I
share it
have
either
seen
way.
semicolon. Please do.
Yeah. So it was kind of a movement this girl started who, instead of a period at the end of the sentence, she did a semicolon, which is just a pause. It's to stop. It's okay to want to feel like it's okay to feel those things. Every single feeling that you could ever have in the human spectrum is normal and natural. And I think that's a really scary thing people are afraid to talk about. Um, but it just shows, you know, warning signs of what's there. When you're feeling those things, it's just showing up. Okay, this is how I'm feeling. This is what's here. Here's this helplessness. But instead of the period, it's a semicolon, it's a pause. And so it's adding to it. Um, and so I actually have this, I don't even know if you can see it, but it's this tattoo and it says brave.
Brave.
And I got it on my wrist, and that kind of is my semicolon tattoo. I had a good guy friend who he ended his life, and it was about around that time that I was really struggling with wanting that choice for myself. There was a lot of different reasons, but I just was terrified of living and what life is going to look like and how to handle some really big, scary things. And when he ended his life, it just kind of reminded me like, I can be afraid. I can hate life currently. I can not know what to do or how to move forward, and I can still choose to keep going. You know, it's you can hate it and do it anyways. And moving through that and not trying to fix it, change it, you know, mold it into something that it wasn't, I was able to kind of move through it. And so, I hope that was okay for me to share, but just
Absolutely.
like that's what kind of the basis of my center is, which is when things are hard and not great, like be afraid and do it anyways. So part of the training that I have is we do, you know, suicide awareness and different trainings, you know, because you're going to hold space with for a lot of people in a lot of different life situations. And a lot of times, like our training isn't an if this happens, it's when this happens. It's we are trained to know how to show up for people when they are in this spot, and they train you how to that at some point you are going to lose a client. You are going to feel completely helpless. You are going to not know what to do, not know what to say. You're going to have to get outside resources. You're going to have to hold space for people who are sitting in this place, and you're going to have to love them well. And last time we kind of talked about holding space for people. And I think it's such a huge part of this topic because so many times I think people try to fix suicide. Somebody says, hey, I don't want to be alive and I don't want to be here and I'm struggling and this is so hard. And it's, have you tried this? And what about this? And have you prayed about it? And have you tried these essential oils and like all the things? And have you changed your diet? And hear me out. Some of those things can absolutely help. Sometimes those are the underlying issue, but most of the time, that's not going to fix it. And that also is not going to help someone feel heard, seen, loved, cared for. And so holding space for somebody, which is just, okay, how are you feeling? What is coming up for you? How can I love you well? Asking those questions, what do you need from me? Do you want some suggestions or advice? Do you want to just tell me, like, how is your heart? What is coming up for you? What is the pain that's there? Um, and I think also people not talking about it, kind of like I said, like not talking about it is not going to make it go away. Talking about it actually is what is going to help people be able to hold space. This last week I kind of posted on social media and I said, hey, if you've struggled with this, you know, in preparation for this, I was really curious what people had to add about this. And the majority of people just said, just show up, just sit with me. Tell me I'm okay. Tell me I'm not crazy. Tell me I'm not alone. Don't try and fix it, change it, mold it. It is what it is. We're going to hold space for it. We're going to be kind to it. We're going to tend to it. And it's going to be hard because these topics sometimes can be really hard to talk about, but they exist. And so we have to, you know, we have to hold space for them.
Yeah, I did notice that. I saw that you had posted that sort of poll out there, and I'm so glad that you got a response, and that is what the response was. Because something else you and I were talking about this week was how it's called suicide prevention. And when you think about it, we don't talk about cancer prevention. We don't talk about um, I mean, I'm just riffing here. Like, we don't talk about heart disease prevention. Even though when you have your blood pressures going nuts and your doctor just defaults to, I'm going to give you statins or whatever it is, like there's this idea that we want to prevent it, like it's inevitable, right? Or
Mm,
just the language we use around suicide um, is is a problem in that people, very much like with spiritual bypassing, when you lose a loved one or you go through a miscarriage, and everybody, because of their inability to grieve or because of their uncomfortability, they just want to get through it, and so they'll throw scripture out or say, oh well, your diet, all this kind of stuff. The same type of approach kind of applies to suicide too, where it's like, ooh, this is really uncomfortable and we need to get out of this space as quickly as we can to make them feel better. I can make them feel better, right? Like, let's go out, let's get some stuff. Like let's go get a coffee, let's go do this. And which again, I know you're not going to knock that either. That it's just out of the goodness of their heart. But what really takes guts, what really takes balls, what really takes, courage is to sit there and hold that space. And I have learned over time to do that from being spiritually bypassed on,
mhm,
from spiritually bypassing or bypassing, forget spirituality. It's some folks that won't resonate with some of our listeners, but like I've tried to bypass or push through those uncomfortable times. Like in my marriage, Stephanie and I were going through a hard time and I'm like, the guy, well, I want to fix it, right? And she doesn't want me necessarily to fix everything she brings to my attention. She wants me to hold space for
mm,
what she's feeling. And so for you to say that, and for people who have gone through suicidal ideation, all these other things, or just even if it's like they haven't like mechanized or planned how they're going to take their own life, they're just like, it would be so much better to just not exist right now if I didn't exist. That's the thing. I think a lot of people who maybe haven't been through that don't understand the type of mindset that a person who's going through suicidal thoughts has been through, where it's like, do you think they haven't thought about correcting their diet, or getting better sleep, or
mhm,
getting out of that job that's making them miserable, or paying off the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they racked up in student debt and consumer debt and with the car and all that stuff? Like, do you think they haven't considered adopting something like, weight training or getting outside more or less screen time? Trust me, most people are trying to find their way out of that as an option. They're trying to find a way to exist. And when they get to that point, it's because most likely they are exhausting or feel like, which, remember, perception absolutely is reality for the person going through it. Even when everyone else can look into a person's life and see things differently or see the positives, that perception is that reality for that person. And so, we can't play God and inspire people to change. But holding space for them, I think that's probably, yeah, like you're saying, it seems that might be one of the most courageous, if not the most courageous things to do.
It's that head knowledge versus heart knowledge, what you're talking about, that head
Yeah.
knowledge. I know, if they do all these things, like, what you think is gonna happen. Okay, I am trying to fix it. So if I do this, this, and this, it's the perfect formula and it's gonna work and it's gonna be great. But the heart knowledge, like, even, one of the people on the post said something about, like, people will explain, like, "Oh, if you died, I would feel X, Y, and Z." And so many times it's like, great, now I feel shame. Now I feel even more depressed because, great, you're putting more pressure on me. You think I want to feel this way? You think I want to not be okay? It's holding space for that heart knowledge of, I love you and I care about you. And yeah, if you were not here, I would be so, so sad. And I'm going to be here for you as much as I can and as much as you let me. And you were talking about, the suicide, the prevention. And I actually wrote down a quote from that because I loved how she said it. Um, Suicide prevention. If we say or do the right thing or love hard enough, we can prevent it, but that's not how it works. It's not a math equation where the right input leads to survival. Think of it like cancer. Sometimes it can be treated and sometimes it can't. We don't say, you should have prevented cancer. We say, I'm so sorry, this is not your fault. We fight for better treatments, support, understanding, but we don't place someone's survival on the people who love them. So why do we do that with suicide? This illusion of prevention creates failure. You did not fail them. You loved them the very best that you could.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think one of the hard truths of life is that everybody has to um, decide how they're going to get up each day, what they're going to do, and that we truly do have this level of free will where life is, what we make it, right? And I realize, and I think in the back of my head, like, yes, some people have been dealt hard cards. In many ways, um, every person I know actually had a level of their life where the cards were stacked against them, um, either when they were being raised or whatever. So I'm not dismissing that idea. Um, but everybody has to make a choice. Uh, Especially, it feels like these days, the times we're living in with the news cycle and with you know all of the possibilities for addictions and things like that, that um living is a choice, and a difficult choice for a lot of folks to make. I think that's why suicide rates are so high. And forgive me, I didn't do the research before. I also feel like the numbers are kind of irrelevant for this discussion, because we're talking about on a intimate, personal level, uh, for people who have experienced this, or are experiencing this, or are thinking of suicide. Uh,
It's no suicide is no respecters of any specific person. It's not, you were raised this way and so this is what happened to you. And I'm assuming that's possibly, where you were going, but like it's not this happened and this happened so you're destined to feel this. It's I've seen completely perfectly healthy people who eat all the right things, say all the right things, exercise, and it just hits like a ton of bricks. And I think there's a couple different places that this suicidal ideation, I think it can come from. There's many, many, many different, but some of it is straight up brain chemistry. Sometimes it's just, I've known people who are hardwired and from a very young age have always just felt, I love my life, but I'm so depressed. I've done everything. I had, my friend, Josh, who he did every single treatment, every single diet plan. I mean, it's for 15 years. He did everything. Went as far as even went to the Mayo Clinic. And I don't even know that they rarely do this, but they did electric shock therapy on him, which is not even really a thing anymore. He woke back up, couldn't remember his name, couldn't remember most about his life, but could still remember he was depressed. And so he, did everything that he could. And, some people may disagree, and that's okay. But everything that him and his family knew to do, they did. Every single thing. I won't get into that extensive list, but it was a
yeah,
lot. Another thing that I think can really create the suicidal ideation is grief. Now, of course, I have to talk about grief because that's what I do. Um, and I think, again, a lot of people don't know what grief actually is. It's not just some big death, it is any kind of emotional pain. And a lot of times we minimize our pain and we minimize our pain and we minimize our pain. And then all of a sudden, it's overwhelming. We've shoved all of our crap into a closet, and then all of a sudden the closet comes busting open and you don't know what to do with all of your stuff. And then you think there's something wrong with you. because you have these decades of grief piled up, but you have no idea how to move through it. You have no idea how to heal from it. You have no idea what to do. And so then you take it onto yourself and say, like, I guess this is where we're at. Like, I just feel this way and I don't know why. Um, which then leads to, I think, my third point, which is that shame. Shame is a huge, huge, huge reason that people get to this point.
Mm,
They've done something horrible, or they've seen something horrible, or they just feel horrible. Shame is one of those things that every single one of us has. Um, Guilt, I think, is good. It is, it's good for us to have that meter, that conviction of, hey, this was not right. This was not okay. But that shame says you were a bad person. I can't believe that you would say that, think that, do that. And once that builds up enough, it's, hey, this is not, I cannot live with this anymore. I don't know how to get rid of it. I don't know how to work through it. And so I don't want to be here anymore. And I know I said 3, but also, and I think they all kind of go together, is that circumstances can also create a lot of this. Circumstances, um, for me, I had the wrong medicine. I don't have a thyroid, and they put me on, a synthetic thyroid hormone, and after years of kind of jumping over the whole story, but after, a year of being on bed rest and having radiation treatments, they put me on this medicine and said, "Great, good luck. This is how you're going to be." And I went to my doctor and was like, "I'm not okay. Like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay." And he was like, "Well, this is just how it is now. Like, your body's just changed. This is going to be the rest of your life." And I was like, I won't do it. It's like every single day was hell. And I was like, I will absolutely not do this. Um, and so I told God, I told the universe, I said, you have 2 months or I'm done. And I went and I saw a different doctor. I thank the Lord that someone was like, hey, go see this doctor. He can recommend X, Y, and Z. Took me off of gluten, switched my medicine within a week, completely different person. And that's not the case for everybody, to be clear about that. That was a huge thing for me where I think sometimes doctors, so well meaning, like those doctors did not know my body could not handle that medicine. It was not okay. It was not good. That was 15 years ago. And just by switching that medicine, it has completely changed my life. And so circumstance, I think, is such a huge important thing. And sometimes it's just a mix of all of it. So I think,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's that is powerful. And you got just kind of a random thought here. I think that's a great example of how some of the most random medications, when you're watching the trailers that play on all of our Apple TV shows and Hulu shows, and I'm not even going to name them. I don't want them coming, their names coming up in my
All right.
transcripts of my episodes. Damn it, I can't do it. But there's always like the list of side effects, and like suicidal ideation is usually one of them. And it's because, I mean, well, I can't say what it's because of, but in your example, um, something that, you were on got you to feel that way. Um, and oddly enough, it is really common too with some of the medications like SSRIs and things that people take for mental things to get clarity or whatever. Um, and talking to friends who have been through depression, and then they get on these pills, and then instead of switching the medication, sometimes they get prescribed a higher dose, which then makes them feel even more helpless because they're taking this medication. Again, I'm not going to name any of them, but they think like that should fix it. And you think like with people who are trying to find a reason to live, when they're like, okay, I should get outside more, I should get my 10,000 steps in, or I should stop drinking, I should um start adopting better habits. It's like that feeling when you're not getting better. even though you're doing what you know, can create that, that drop basically, and knock you down a few more levels. Um, Something I wanted to make sure that we covered, and maybe this is a good segue into it too, but like, I'll just tell you with my friend who I lost, you know, I every time I remember him and every time I think about the times we had and some of my core memories with him, which are some of the best memories
Mm.
of my adult life in my 40s, um, I it helps me to feel happier for the time that I had with him. I don't want to forget him. Um, but healing from my grief makes me feel a little trepidatious because I feel like a guilt. Like what if I forget about him? Um, you know, and that was part of what came up last time after we stopped recording, but we are talking about, what happens when you feel guilt for actually healing and moving forward and going through the grief recovery process. And I know that's something that I think has come up for some of your clients as well. So it's almost like there's this weird, like, you're healing and you're becoming more whole with the situation, but you also feel like you want to hang on to the grief because that's what makes it real and that's what makes you honor losing them. And
Mhm.
so feels like a good moment to kind of talk about that.
Absolutely. First part I want to address is the word guilt. We throw that word around so much because it feels like the right word, but the course that I teach on grief, one of the main things they talk about is the word guilt. Guilt is the feeling when you've done something wrong. And
Mm,
so guilt is not the right feeling that we have. It's I feel guilty, somebody who's passed, like I'll add on to that where it's when somebody's passed suicide, almost always guilt. Death in general or loss, there's always this guilt. Your brain is trying to say, could I have done something different? Could I have done something better? Could I have been a better friend? Could I have showed up more? With suicide, could I have fixed it? Guilt is, it feels, yeah, like the right word, but it's not.
mm,
It's just grief. It's this grief of what if I'm a bad friend because I can't because I don't remember that. And I don't remember what color the bag was that they gave me. And I can't remember, that we went on a run one time and we listened to this song and I can't remember what that song is. Like we feel that guilt, but it's just that grief of, oh, this is so sad. This is so painful. This is so horrible. And again, we're trying to make it into a head wound, but it's a heart wound. If I can just remember, then it'll fix it and I'll feel better and it's going to be okay. But your heart is broken and no amount of memories or thoughts, like that's not going to fix it. Um, Another on
thank you
this,
for
the
that.
post that I made about suicide, there was a friend who posted, she was talking about, I have notes here too. Um, there were survivors, like survivor's guilt.
Mm,
So there were, I think they were Vietnam soldiers, and they had just been through something so horrific, watched all of their friends, all their buddies die. And then now they had their survivor's guilt of like, why did I get to live? And there's no rhyme or reason. Like, at least in my opinion, other people might have different opinions, but especially in things like war, I don't think God, the universe handpicks, you get to live, you don't get to live. I don't think that's how that works. Um, I don't think God's an asshole. That's my opinion.
mm,
Because to me, that makes God an asshole if he just picked and chose like that.
right.
Um, but they had to keep the memories alive of the people that they lost because they felt like no one else would. Um, and it created this penance, this I am going to stay stuck in my grief. I'm going to stay stuck in this pain. I'm going to make myself feel worse because no one will remember them if I don't. Um, it mm, it it feels like I might not love them enough or I don't want to forget them. And that's absolutely impossible. We might forget maybe certain details, but I think a lot of times when people are afraid to heal from grief, so many people are like, I don't even know what that means. Like, I hear and see comments all the time where people are like, I will never feel better. It will never get better. I'm gonna feel this forever. And I used to do that too. I had this best friend who, died of cancer. And I was like, that's my best friend. And I loved her. And that's my person. And got a tattoo on her foot because of her. It's like all these things. And I felt like if I held on to it, that I was a good enough person, that it really meant that she mattered. And if I forget her, then, who else is going to remember her? And it's like every single one of us who knew her was so deeply affected by her. It is impossible to forget her. And healing, it does not mean like you cannot forget that person. Like healing means I'm choosing to let go of the pain. Because every time I, thought about Amanda, it's this pain of, could I have showed up better? Could I have helped her? Could I have fixed her? Could I have done more? Instead of just, she loved Disney and she loved Finding Nemo. And now every time I watch that stupid movie, I think of her and I'm like, think of how she would say, yes, I'm a natural blue. And I'm like, I hear that and it's like my brain goes back to how I felt when I was 14, when I was with her. But because of that pain, I don't allow myself to go to those good memories.
Oh,
So much of like the grief recovery method, it's insane almost every time that I do this work on the really painful things. This just happened to me last week. I did some of my grief work and it was such a painful memory. Every time I thought about it, I would shy away from it. It hurt. It was painful. I get so angry. And I finally allowed myself to dive in, to process, to heal the pain. And within 2 days, so many positive memories flooded back to my brain that I completely forgot about because the pain, it pushed it down. Your brain is going to try to avoid the pain, but if you go heal the pain and you look for that and you choose to let go of the guilt that you are holding on to, what feels like that guilt and that shame, if you are allowing yourself to really look at what's there and to let yourself off the hook, and to be kind to, to allow yourself to forgive that person who has passed, which that's a whole topic too. So if that doesn't resonate, that's okay. Um, but the friends who have died, like I have to choose to let go of the pain that they have caused me. I'm not letting go of them.
mm,
I'm not letting go of their story or their life. I'm letting go of the fact that I'm taking that 1% responsibility of my feelings of, I feel angry at them. I feel hurt. I feel misguided. I feel like I could have done more. I need to be able to let go of those things so I can deeply enter into, I just miss my friend. And I wish that I could have helped. I think that's that grief. I wish I would have done anything to be able to fix this, to hold, like to heal it. Like I would do anything to do that. But since I can't, I have to make that choice to heal so that I can be free. And it's not free from them. It's not free from the horrible situation. It is freedom to miss them. It is freedom to be able to talk about them and not feel a knife in my heart every single time. It's that freedom to say, this was my friend and I loved the time I got to spend with them. I know I did the best that I could with the information that I had. And even moments, maybe I felt like I could have done better. I have to let go of that because there's nothing I can do about it. And holding on to that penance, it's not going to fix it. It's not good for anybody. It doesn't actually help anybody. It doesn't help my friend who has passed. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help other people. And so it can feel really wrong, like somebody has to pay for this or somebody has to
mm.
take this, hold this, like there has to be some justice here. And unfortunately, that's not how justice works. And so allowing yourself to say, it's okay. It's okay. And I'm okay. And they're okay. And I'm going to be okay.
I just, uh, I just experienced some healing hearing you talk about that. And I told you 2 weeks ago, I didn't want to do a mock grief session on this episode.
Sorry.
Remember that you had floated that idea, like, hey, we could kind of give people an insight into what it's like to have a grief recovery session. But one of my favorite memories with my buddy was we were doing a private lesson in jujitsu.
Mhm.
Um, at his academy, and we were with his professor, and it was a no gi session, so that we didn't wear like the big gi or kimono, whatever people call it. I call it a burlap sack because that's how it feels getting thrown around by my fellow jujitsu practitioners over at TMC. But it was my first time doing a no gi session, and so I just felt like a fish out of water. And he was my buddy was also just an older guy. He was older than me, but like we were just talking about how much it sucked doing jujitsu as an older guy, older person, but sitting on ass for decades and then deciding we want to be more active and get healthier. And his professor is a younger guy, just an absolute assassin, right? And was teaching us some of these moves, and we had to practice on each other. And the pressure in jujitsu of like putting your weight on somebody's diaphragm, and it was really cool. That's one of my fondest memories with him was getting absolutely crushed under his weight. He's trying to hurt me, he's trying to submit me, right? And then I do it on him, and getting that feedback as bros, brothers from
Mhm.
other mothers. um I thought about that for the first time as you were talking about, like, I can feel all of the emotions, but then also be thankful for the time that I got with them. And so that happened just now. And if that's the only reason why I did this podcast today,
No.
then thank you and God bless you, Casey, for doing that, for helping me do that just now. My goodness, uh, that that's super powerful. Thank you for
Mhm.
that. Um,
Thank you for sharing.
yeah. Uh, you know, I I feel like something else that we need to talk about just on the subject of loss. Um, and I'm kind of, again, it's happened a couple times during this episode where I feel like I'm in gray territory, where I've got an idea of where I think we need to go, but as these emotions come up, I need to honor them and feel them. And I'm an external processor anyway, so it's really good that I have a podcast for
Mhm.
doing that sometimes. But you had talked about just kind of some other things that you wanted to. Uh, or that you were open to talking about on the show. And so I guess that's where I'm going with this is, what in your notes have we not discussed yet, or not covered that you wanted to kind of cover on the show today?
Absolutely. I think a side note, something we haven't mentioned, we've talked about suicidal ideation, but we've not used the words commit suicide because it's
Mm.
as we learn and grow, we're learning how to care for people better, and names are changing and terms are changing, and most professionals don't call it commit anymore because it's like committing a crime, and we're trying to destigmatize. And so a lot of people will say complete suicide or choose suicide or things like that, just to kind of give it a, like, it is. And I don't always use this term, but like it's potentially an illness. It is not something like it's not who you are, it's something that you struggle with. It's something that you have, and completing suicide, most of the time it's at a complete helplessness. It's at a I don't know what else to do. And so this is the only choice that I have. Um Suicide, sometimes I think in like in society in general, it's the worst thing you could do. At least for a lot of people I know, it's the worst thing a person could do. It's awful, it's terrible. Um and the training that I've learned and the education that I've learned too is to honor when you want to start to like, when you start to feel suicidal, to honor that. Now, what does that mean? So many times it's, I'm feeling this. Oh my gosh, I have to push it down. That's terrible. That's horrible. It's your brain and your body are so smart in the way that they're made, where suicide says, I have no other options. I have no idea what to do. This is so, so bad. I have no idea where to go. And so while it, of course, it's a horrible thing and it's an awful thing to feel and it's an awful thing to experience, suicide itself, like, I think destigmatizing where it's not something anybody chooses. Nobody just chooses, "Hey, I wanna feel this horrible." And most of the time, when you ask somebody who's struggling with suicide, "Do you actually wanna die, or do you want to, heal your pain? Do you want to just not be in pain anymore?" It's that they don't wanna feel pain anymore, and they feel they have no other options. And so I've had people come into my office and say, "You either this is my last choice. You either heal and fix me and we get through this, or I'm done." And I think, yeah, for some people that would terrify them. And it's like, "Oh my gosh, we need this, this, and this." And something about me is I'm actually not a mandated reporter. And part of that is for moments like this where somebody comes to you and they say, "I'm suicidal." And now hear me out. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to do the best to save someone's life, but it means I do not have a legal obligation to, now you have said this information, I have to call somebody now. And actually, a lot of mental health professionals that even are mandated reporters will probably tell you the same, that they will do every single other thing to avoid reporting it, because then it's, again, feels like a criminal thing, feels like there's something wrong with you. It feels like you've done something bad. It's, okay, how can we help you? Where do we start? Where do we need to go? Um, Whenever I've had a couple, I would say probably 3 different really bad bouts in my life where I have felt extremely close to wanting to make that decision. Different times, one time was because of deep shame, one time was because of major health issues, and another time was because of deep grief, which is, the 3 main points, and then all of those happen to be circumstances as well.
Right.
And I had all these major losses and all of this deep pain, and everything was so horrible. And I started to go see a therapist. And this is a whole other topic. I won't get too much into this, but I just told her, "Hey, I don't want to be here anymore. I have a plan. I have the means. This is what I'm thinking." Something that's also really hard to talk about in suicide is when my friend completed suicide, I wanted to then complete suicide, which to me was the biggest mind F, because I'm in so much pain. Like, you just ended your life and it created so much pain. And hear me out, I'm not trying to shame anybody for that. It created so much pain in so many people. And my brain goes to, now I don't want to be alive. And I'm like, hold on, that the whole thing
Almost like
I'm
it's a contagion, like you
yes,
caught.
it is. And you see this
Yeah.
in schools, you see this in communities. One person ends their life and it's an
Copycats.
epidemic. It
Yep.
hits so hard, and I felt so crazy because I'm I was like, "Okay, if I wanna end my life, I have to make it look like it's an accident, because I can't put anybody through that again. That it would be better than to create this again for someone." And it's, I don't wanna create that shame for other people. I don't wanna create that guilt for other people, which, again, is not how that works, but that was my mindset too, of, because people told me, like, "I'm gonna be so sad if you're not here," and it just created this shame in me. Um, but then, I had this therapist that I talked to about it, and she, gave me options of different places I could go get checked into. And because of the cost of it, because of the stories that I've heard of mental health institutions, because of, again, what I won't get into too much, I was like, I think that will make it so much worse for me. And so her and I created a plan. Every single day I texted her. I think there were 3 different questions that I asked. And then I signed something where it's, "Hey, if you're going to do this, you have to tell me first." I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "Can you agree to this?" "Yes, I can." "Okay." And while I would not consider myself, I would not be the first person you go to in crisis, am trained in crisis and will get you to the right people to help you through that crisis. Um, and that's when, even people who I've had people who we've been deep into sessions, I've been seeing them for months, and then this comes up. We pause the deep work and it's, "Hey, we just need to keep you safe right now." And so, um, anyways, I don't know what my point in all of that saying is, just showing up for people again. And I think, because I even when I was going through this, deep depression, my friend Josh, who killed himself, I called his mom and I was like, "Hey, I'm letting you know this is where I'm at. I'm here. I don't know what to do." And she basically said the same thing. She was like, "If you can, like, what are the things that you need to do to take care of yourself? What do you need from other people?" And asking other people, show up for me in this way, this way, and this way. And then the people who, people also just showed up in ways I didn't ask for. Um, but it was just also her holding space for me. I did not want to call her because I'm like, "You just went through something horrific and now I'm going to put this on you." And she was like, "I'm so glad you called me." So many people are going to say, "I'm so glad that you called me." And so, if this is somebody who's listening who's like, "I don't want to be a burden and a bother," I would much rather stay up all hours of the night than to have to go to your funeral. I
Mm,
will do anything it takes to help you, to support you, to love you well. You're not a burden or a bother. And I think that also creates more when you're already feeling so depressed, and then now I'm a burden and a bother. And it's like, the people who have just listened and cared and just showed up and said, "You're not a burden and a bother." And that doesn't mean they spent hours and hours and hours. Some people said, "I only have capacity for an hour because what you're dealing with is heavy." I had, a couple different friends who've been deeply, deeply depressed. There are certain times that I only have an hour or two, or like, and that's okay. I think so many people, it's, "Oh, I can't handle that. That's too much." You don't have to spend days and months with them. You can check in. What emotional space do I have? I have 30
mm,
minutes to just call and say, "Hey, I got 30 minutes. Talk to me. I'm here. I love you. I care about you." Um, and then yeah, I think again, like, just even I've, had a couple clients who have come to me and said, like, just really struggled with, could I have prevented it? I didn't answer their phone call. They tried to call me. I was the
mm,
last person and I missed it. Could I have X, Y, and Z? And that is a very, very dangerous game. I think so many times we get caught on the last moment or the last image or the last part. And again, like you were saying, it's, let's hold on to all the positive pieces. Let's hold on to the parts that I did do well, the parts that I I know were good, and then forgive myself, because I've also seen that there are certain people that it does not matter what you do. My friend Josh, his mother, did everything she could have for him. Every single human thing possible she could have for him, and he still made that choice. And I'm so thankful that she knows that she did every single thing that she could, and then I know she probably has forgiven herself for the parts that she couldn't have. I was debating if I would talk about this or not because it's someone else's story. But so, um, Josh's mom has two sons, Josh, and I'm not going to say the other's name, but um, this other son, Josh's brother, would very frequently basically tell Josh to get over it. And, he was actually the worst one who said, "Just be happy and just enjoy your life. And I don't understand why it's that serious and that deep and all these things." Um, and Josh's mom, would always sit by him, would be there with him, would be up at night when has these night terrors, all of these horrible things. And Josh's brother, after Josh killed himself, Josh's brother wrote their parents a horrible letter and said, "You're the reason he's dead. I never want to speak to you. You're never going to get to meet your grandchildren. You never get to be around me. You never get to X, Y, and Z." And in one foul swoop, she lost both sons. And I think the point in me sharing that is that if you don't get it, if you've made it this far into the podcast and you're trying to listen and you're trying to understand and you don't get it, It's okay that you don't get it. You don't have to get it. Be thankful that you don't get it.
Mhm.
And until you're in that situation, please do not judge somebody else who's in that situation because you have no idea. You have no idea what that person's been through. It does not mean that they're weak. It does not mean that they're, could try harder and do better. Like it's, yeah, logic. If we could think our way out of situations, I'm an overthinker. I would be so healed. I would be so healed. I would be amazing. But that is not how it works. It's a
Mm-mm.
heart wound, not a head wound. And so I think, yeah, just sharing that story, like, I'm so thankful again that Josh's mom she does have a deep faith and she's also a faith in herself that she knows she did every single thing that she could. She knows how hard she tried and how hard she fought. And one other thing I want to add to, and this one's a really hard one to talk about for people because it feels so wrong, is relief. When someone has died
Mm.
or someone has completed suicide, and this is, I never would want to admit this, but I think it's so important, is that I was not okay. I was not happy. I was not good. I was not well when Josh died. There was no part of me that was like, this is great. But there was that tiny sense of relief of, you're not in pain anymore. You're not like, I know, because there's this, are you going to be okay? Are you going to be, my brain is constantly, are you going to be okay? When am I going to get the call? And I almost deep in my heart knew it was not an if, it was a when. It's when am I going to get this call? And that's not what I wanted. Of course not. But it's when is this going to happen? He's tried everything. He's done everything. He's shared. And I'm so, so thankful he was open enough to share just his deep, deep struggles. And I think sometimes there's this relief that we have when somebody has a chronic illness. And I would consider suicide a chronic illness sometimes too, depending on the case. And it's this, yeah, it's this horrible, like, I feel like there's something wrong with me that I feel relieved. When my friend died of cancer, she had 4 years of hell. And when she died, I didn't cry for months because I was so relieved.
Mm.
I don't have to worry about them anymore. And again, while I know Josh's mom would do anything to change that, do anything to change that story, I know there was some relief there for her because I don't have to worry about him anymore. I know he's okay. She has a deep belief in heaven and believes that he's there. And that's a whole other thing too, is just being really careful on those statements of, well, at least they're not in pain anymore. Again, logically, that's what I felt. And even my heart, that's what I felt. He's not in pain anymore. But to say that immediately, to say that to somebody who is grieving, um, just be really careful with that. And, at least they're not hurting anymore. They're in heaven. And I think some people, when Josh died, like they clung on to that a little bit more, but I wasn't ready for that immediately. I was not ready to, I was so mad at God. I was so mad at God because why didn't you heal him? It's a whole other topic for a whole other day. But
Yeah.
this, like, the person who told me that Josh died called me and said, hey, I want to let you know, like, Josh killed himself. I'm glad I know he's in heaven. And it was all in one sentence. And I could not even process what just happened. And 10 seconds later, wait, and now I have to, uh, what? Like, it was the worst time for me to hear that. And
No
for them,
semicolon
that's exactly what
at
they
all.
believed. That's what they needed to feel, all of those things. But for me, don't tell me that's how I feel because that's not how I feel. I'm not going to feel it for a long time, if ever. Um, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Just kind of in closing here, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of sign us out. But before I do that, I want to talk about what you just talked about. Stephanie and I were at Steve's funeral. Steve, I love you. I miss you. Um, saw at least 200 pictures on the wall um, of moments from his life. There were actually a couple of pictures with me and him, with one of my daughters sitting on his lap, driving his boat. let her drive his boat.
Hmm.
That was really cool. Uh, we were Stephanie and I were just kind of standing there, and at some point, I think I did say after the service, I said, you know, he obviously kept this so private that everybody was in shock. Um, when I look at these pictures and I see him with his kids, some man who loved his kids so deeply, um, loved his wife so deeply, loved his hobbies, and he was so insanely brilliant. Um, Pilot's license, investor, like techie,
Hmm.
you know, strength training, firearms, so gifted at everything, but had this deep pain, obviously, that I couldn't find an explanation for. But all I could say when I was looking at these pictures and memories was, what a beautiful human being. What a beautiful person that even though his end here in this life was so shocking and um awful for everyone around him that loved him so much and created, all kinds of uh I said he left a giant crater in his wake. Like, there are just people that, when they go out, it leaves a giant crater of, like, and I think about a crater, it's like where a meteor hits and nothing else survives.
Hmm.
you know,
Absolutely.
there's this imagery to that, but then as we walked out, because the service was months later, right? I mean, it just took the family, and there were so many people that showed up to this event. But as we were walking out, we were both, we were in tears, we're talking, and I sat down and I just kind of let out a big sigh, and I honored the peace and the relief. Um,
Hmm.
I went to that. I was able to get to that moment of relief, and um, whether I felt guilty about it in that moment, so what? That was what I was feeling, but I didn't feel a level of shame or guilt. It was just like, that was your choice, bro. And as as much as I can say, I have relief that whatever was hurting you, whatever brought you to that point, um, it's well with my soul now. And from that moment, I was able to,
Hmm.
now where I'm a year out. Well, I'm 6 months from the funeral, um, a year out from getting told the news. Um, I will occasionally surf his social media page. I'll occasionally look back at pictures. Um, I'll occasionally get reminders of the first time I met him in the coffee shop and what we talked about, and how every interaction I had with him was just amazing, you know. And that relief part too, that's huge. There's something in that. And I think, on that note, Casey McBroom, how do you want to sign us out today?
um, I think I just actually want to add that I think it's really beautiful that they didn't rush a funeral. So many people rush straight into the funeral. They pass on a Friday and the next Tuesday or, the next week. And people get so into just go do it. And it's like, it's okay to allow yourself to take the time it needs to heal. And the last thing I feel like I should say is sometimes I think we can get stuck on what I'd call like the last, like stuck on a memory, stuck on a painful memory. And even if you've seen it or not seen it, even if your brain conjures up what it might have looked like, how it happened, all the things, our brain sometimes can latch onto that and get stuck. And people will say, just don't think about it. and that is very nearly impossible. And so I'd say if that's the case for you, if it's, with Josh, like I didn't see it, but I was told what happened and my brain kept replaying it over and over and over again because our brain tries to do that. It tries to make sense of it. But I had to go to my heart and what were my favorite other pictures of him? What was, my favorite when he loved to, drink a cold bottled drink. Like both of us can't do caffeine. So we'd go get some other fun drink, non-alcoholic, during the middle of the day. And, it's like we would just go on a walk. And I remember
Basically a
those pictures.
LaCroix.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. So all the other fun ones are out. But,
Yeah.
and so then like remembering those things where it's okay to remember the bad, painful, hard memories, the hard things that he shared with me, the not as good moments, and think of the beautiful moments of, one time I told him a story and he goes, "Do I need to go kick his ass? Like I'll kill him." What, being, brother to me. And I'm like, okay, like it's okay to hold space for all of it. So much, so much of the time it's black or white, good or bad, right or wrong. And life in general it's just a mix. There's flowers and weeds, and there's beauty in both, and they have a purpose for both, and hold space. And then when it comes to it, you got to yank the weeds so they don't overtake everything. Heal your heart. It's okay to allow yourself to feel okay. Doesn't make you a bad person. It's okay to honor them in the sadness. It's okay to honor them in feeling okay too.
Absolutely. Casey, thank you so much for, again, just bringing all of your experience, your wisdom, your vulnerability. Thank you for sharing your testimony, your story, parts of your story today. To our listeners, really appreciate you sticking with us throughout this episode. To Casey's following, thank you for coming to check this episode out, this platform. This is definitely, in my opinion, the most important conversation that I've hosted on this show to date.
Mm.
I think we have talked to a lot of people. I think this is episode 83. I think I've had about 64-ish people, maybe 70. Most of my episodes are with guests, and I think this is probably the most deepest and vulnerable we've been on this show. And so, Casey, thank you again for being a trailblazer, not only in your field and with your community and with your friends and the way that you show up for people, but also just in this space and in grief recovery. Um, you are a absolute badass of the highest order, and I know I speak for Stephanie as well when we appreciate all that you do for people, not just in Kansas City. Just as a reminder for everybody, too, you're licensed to counsel in how many states? And
All of
maybe
them.
you could, yeah. So maybe
Yeah.
you could just kind of end with how people can find you and how they can be referred to Brave and Co.
Yeah, absolutely. So
So
I have an in-person office and then I have
that's right.
online capabilities, which is great. I can see people in all 50 states. And if you're looking for, maybe you've done traditional counseling, which is beautiful and so important and needed, but you feel like you want to go a little deeper or really want to dive into some deep trauma, or just even get things moving a bit more to go back to your therapist and say, okay, how do we process this now? Program's been around for over 50 years and it's evidence based, so it works. Like recovery means to feel better. I've never had one person come to my office and complete the program and not feel better. And so if you want to find me, go to braveandco.com, or griefrecoverycasey@gmail.com. And you can find me,
Absolutely.
online social medias at Grief Recovery Casey, on TikTok, Instagram, and then I do have a Facebook page that's a little newer, so there's not a lot on there, but yeah.
Absolutely. And for those of you driving, we've got those in the show notes. Go out, indoor, support
Oh.
Casey McBroom. Appreciate you.